This podcast is not sponsored or supported by any business or organization. The views reflected on these podcast episodes are my own. Please be aware I am not a medical expert, travel agent, or any other kind of expert. Hey everyone! Welcome to the Eat, Explore, Love podcast. I'm Ashley. This podcast is based off of my blog of the same name, Eat, Explore, Love. It talks about the unique challenges in traveling around the world when you have celiac disease. Due to sort of popular demand, I decided to also record a podcast to delve a little deeper into my travels and the lessons learned along the way. Welcome back to another episode of Eat, Explore, Love, and Happy New Year! After receiving some feedback from my initial episodes, I decided this podcast needed to evolve into a different kind of format. New year, new podcast. As I say in my intro, this podcast is based on the blog of the same name. I tried to look at this as a way to ensure people will visit my blog and listen to the podcast, and they're still able to get something different from each experience. But it seems that in the podcast, we've lost the element of what makes my perspective unique. Traveling through the world as someone with celiac disease. It comes with its own challenges and its own wonderful, unique perspective on things and how I travel around the world. There's so few resources out there for people with celiac disease. The gluten-free stuff that's out there is people that choose to be gluten-free, that are health conscious and, also probably vegan and vegetarian and dairy-free and all the frees, which is great for them. But when you are forced into having to be gluten-free, when you are dealing with really intense side effects, if you are accidentally what the celiac community calls glutened, which is when you accidentally eat gluten. That is a whole other perspective and a whole other type of fear when you are traveling throughout the world and you are part of some countries that might not necessarily have the knowledge base that you have. So hopefully this is a resource for people, a therapy session, a way for people to come together through being able to go through the world with celiac disease. So here's to a new year full of new beginnings. Hopefully everyone enjoys this new format to this podcast. I took a much-awaited trip to Liverpool. It was an incredible city. There weren't a lot of places I got to eat at, but I did get to check a very important item off the bucket list. That's the lesson for this week, talking about the dreams from the bucket list that become fulfilled. Eat, sleep, Liverpool, repeat. While I was in Liverpool, I got it to eat at the Cavern Club restaurant. So how did I find this restaurant? I wasn't intending on eating there originally, but on the tour that I went on, they gave us a coupon for the Cavern Club. And the Cavern Club is on this fantastic little strip of a road, like a little alleyway. And there's a bunch of different clubs and restaurants where people are performing music live. It kind of reminded me of Nashville in the way that it was set up. And the Cavern Club is where a lot of artists like Adele or the Beatles or other rock and roll groups performed as they were starting out. So that was the atmosphere, very much like a rock and roll type of place. Very much, if you've ever been to Nashville, it very much resembles the city center of Nashville as you're walking around there, where there's so much loud music happening all around you. The energy is just out of this world. Bachelorette parties galore. It's an incredible experience and a really great atmosphere. And you just see the history of music in Liverpool around every corner in this restaurant. So I went in hoping that, I was being provided that coupon, that hopefully they'd have something for me to eat, and they did. And it was really fantastic. They were very attentive. I always like that when I'm at a restaurant, they come over to you, and when they bring the food down, that they repeat this is gluten free. So they acknowledge that they've heard you, that they made sure to tell the staff that they remembered enough to bring it over to you. And they did that. They were very careful and explained to me what made the dish gluten free, things like that. And it was so delicious. If you want to see pictures of that, highly recommend you go to my blog at hieatexplorelove.com. I have a fantastic respect for Liverpool, the city, and through exploring what the city has to offer, I certainly felt that way. So, through Get Your Guide, I took a Beatles tour, which toured around essentially all the birthplaces and childhood homes and important landmarks to do with the Beatles and their growing up in Liverpool. And this has been something that I have been waiting for so long. My love for the Beatles started in high school, and I'm going to be honest, I did totally get into the Beatles because of my boyfriend at the time. And he was in love with the Beatles, so I started listening to Beatles music all the time. And that's the only thing I took with me from that relationship. That's the only thing that has lived on is my love for the Beatles. In high school, I had a Beatles purse leather pocketbook that was amazing that my mom got for me from Disney London. I had a Beatles wallet. When I studied abroad in London while I was in college, I went primarily trying to get to the Beatles tour. I went to Abbey Road. I wrote my chorus teacher, who is also a Beatles lover. I wrote her name on the wall outside of Abbey Road. Along with mine, I walked on the crosswalk of Abbey Road, nearly got killed. But unfortunately, when the rest of my classmates went and did this specific Liverpool tour, I got very, very ill and I had to miss out on the tour. So I unfortunately didn't get to do it that time, but I've been waiting ever since to get to do the tour, and it lived up to all of my expectations. My only complaint about the tour was that the tour guide was a bit rude. I asked a question because I didn't understand what a sign meant, and he said, "Well, I already told you, weren't you listening?" And I have a little bit of a hard time keeping focus. So it's quite possible that while he was giving his explanation on the bus that I did miss it. And not on purpose. It's just hard for my attention span to hold for a long period of time. Sometimes someone will say something to me or I'll hear something and I'll get lost in a train of thought. I'm a very creative person, so I basically get into my own imagination, even as an adult. And so I didn't appreciate that he made me feel bad about that because that's not something I can necessarily control. It is part of who I am. I do my best to control it, but I don't always have that capability. So I had questions later on at the tour and didn't feel like I could ask them. But again, that was the only negative thing. We saw all the childhood homes of all the Beatles. It was awesome. It was incredible to see how a lot of the guys went from a rags to riches lifestyle. Also, seeing the place where John and Paul met was pretty incredible, and how the two of them became friends. I totally nerded out, and it was an incredible opportunity to get to be able to see that tour. In Liverpool, it is very much a Beatles centric city. So everywhere you look, everywhere you go, you can see everything to do with the Beatles. There's a Beatles museum, there's Beatles gift shops everywhere. There's a Beatles themed hotel in Liverpool. And mind you, Liverpool has the Guinness Book of World Record for the amount of musicians to come from one city. it only beat Detroit, Michigan, and Motown and all that. So just to put that into perspective. So there's so many musicians that come out of Liverpool, and they really honor the Beatles. And when I tell you that a lot of musicians came out of Liverpool, like well-known names that you would be well aware of and also deserve to be honored and have a hotel dedicated to them. And it's only the Beatles, man. It's quite fantastic. I definitely took advantage of all Beatles related stuff. I went to the gift shop. I bought myself some stuff, and typically I don't normally do that, but I had to do it in this instance. And I lived my best life. I already talked a little bit of why Liverpool reminded me of Nashville in the food section when I talked about the restaurant and the atmosphere, but it also reminded me of Nashville as far as the energy, the hopes, the dreams that people have. That Liverpool is seemingly the place that people go to make their music careers happen. And the only equivalent that I could think of as I was walking around was Nashville for the United States. I haven't been to Detroit, but I also don't feel that people necessarily go to Detroit in the same way they're going to Nashville in heaps and droves right now. That was nice and really cool to be able to say, oh, this city reminds me of someplace from home. If you want to find out more details about the tour and things I got to see on the tour, make sure to go to the blog at hieatexplorelove.com. So the lesson of this week was regards to dreams being fulfilled from the bucket list and why that's so important. I have a bunch of items on my bucket list. I've been so lucky that I've been able to do a lot of those things. I am a type A personality, so I'm very organized when it comes to my bucket list items because there have been many times where I've traveled to places and I didn't have a written out bucket list, and I totally missed out on opportunities of being able to cross something off the bucket list because I didn't have it organized for myself and I forgot about it. And life is too short. Who knows when you're going to be able to visit a city more than once? So I've definitely organized it a bit better. There's a thing that I do that was also inspired by a bunch of personal things that I was going through at the time that I was not able to find anyone that I could travel with. The only person I could find that would be willing to travel with me was myself. I do have my sister that is chomping at the bit to be able to travel with me, but she's a little bit young still and has to go through school and has her sports and all that other stuff. So until she can join me on my trips, I have to travel alone because it's very difficult to find people that are willing to pull the trigger, so to speak, and go out into the world and travel with you. And it's even harder to travel when you have celiac disease, but that's a whole other podcast for a whole totally different time. So I figured if I'm waiting for someone to travel with me, I'm never going to get to go anywhere. So when I was living in the United States, I had a bowl and I wrote out all my bucket list items, all the places I wanted to see, all the things I wanted to do in those places. And I wrote down a city on its very own little strip of paper. I fold it up, I put it in a bowl. I divide it into week-long trips and weekend-long trips. So that way, with my time off, I'm able to have both. I'm able to accommodate both with my job, so I take advantage of that. And I put the week-long trips in a bowl, I shake it all around, and then I pick one city. And then I put the weekend-long trips in a bowl, and I shake that up, and then I pick that city. And those are my trips for the year. I do it or I used to do it every New Year's Day. It really got me going to a lot of really amazing places. Sometimes there's exceptions to that. I saw online once that the Celiac Disease Foundation was advertising this thing called celiac cruises. And I looked at the different cruises that they were offering, and they were offering an Oktoberfest themed cruise where you got to go to Budapest, you got to go to Austria and different towns in Austria, and the whole thing ended in Germany and celebrating a gluten-free Oktoberfest. This was something, Oktoberfest, I didn't even bother to put on the bucket list because I didn't think I would ever be able to have Oktoberfest because they have pretzels and beer. That's the thing with Oktoberfest. And you know what's in pretzels and beer? A whole lot of gluten. So I saw that, dropped everything, and took advantage of the opportunity. And this will be spoken about in a future podcast. But I was so excited to be able to take advantage of a bucket list moment that I didn't even think to put on the bucket list. But in addition to that, there was something part of the tour that was part of my bucket list, and that was doing the Sound of Music tour in Austria. I had to go and do that. And I don't want to talk too much about it because there is going to be a future podcast episode where I really delve into all of it. But I had the same feeling doing that tour that I had in Liverpool, that I had been waiting for so long to be able to do this Beatles tour, to be able to experience where the Beatles came from, their origin story, and getting to have that moment and not feel for a second like I was a weirdo or having to justify, my fandom. People on that tour were just like me. And that's the fun part about doing things like that. So I got to do it and it was magical. And it is things I can't even describe to anybody. I can't put into words, but it feels like almost a weight is being lifted off your shoulders when you mark something off the bucket list. I feel so incredibly lucky to have gotten to do something like that. Now, I have a bunch of other items on my bucket list that I have yet to do that I'm really excited to get to do. Not all of it are super happy, you know, fun times, but I've always wanted to go to a concentration camp and pay my respects to the lives that were lost. Again, I spoke about in a prior episode of me working at the Anne Frank Center and the impact that had on me. So I want to go and pay my respects, and that is something I will be able to do soon. I'm getting to do that soon. Another thing on my bucket list is that there is one Michelin star restaurant in the world that is 100% gluten free, and I want to go to that. That's on my bucket list. Apparently, there's a 100% gluten free village in Spain that I would love to go to. That's also on my bucket list. I really would love to go to do that. Another thing on my bucket list that is a recent addition is I would love to see the Northern Lights. They look so beautiful, and I'm not really good with the cold, but I really would love to be able to do that. So that's some items on my bucket list. As they come up, I'm definitely going to share it with everybody. But again, once you cross something off your bucket list and once you're experiencing it, I do everything I can to live in the moment. I don't usually take out my phone too much in those moments because I just want to absorb it and take it all in through my eyeballs. Because when I'm using my phone in those moments, I don't really take it in. I don't really remember it as well because I figure, oh, I'm just taking a picture of it. I'm doing it for the gram and on I go to the next. I don't really take the time to sit in it and absorb it. So that is just some of my personal bucket list. Now, for me and for a lot of other people I know, there's also the professional bucket list. My professional bucket list it changes over time because I'm still figuring out what I would like to do. I would like to write a script. I have a bunch of ideas as I travel around. I get inspired by some ideas, but I have zero confidence in my writing abilities. So I just want to do it. I just want to write a script about something I'm passionate about and give it to some people that I trust to read, see what they have to say. Nothing will probably come of it because that's not how life works, but I just want to be able to say, professionally, I wrote a script and I sent it in to be created by someone somewhere somehow. Another thing, which that is something that no one knows, and that is something that is hopefully fun for podcast listeners to find out, but that is something that's on my professional bucket list. I would like to eventually run a department. And I don't know what that means yet. I don't know in what capacity that would be yet. But I would love to be a manager of people and make them feel heard and be the type of manager that I have loved and appreciated in the past. So maybe more so than running a department, I would like to be a manager. Some other professional milestones are salary things of how I would like to hit a salary that is comparable to my male counterparts that are doing the same level of work as me, to be able to have a number where I don't have to worry about living paycheck to paycheck anymore, to have enough money where I can take care of someone other than myself. Those are professional bucket list items. And I've gotten a lot farther at my age. A bucket list item also was a Tony Award. I'm never going to get that. But I did get an Emmy Award, and that was pretty fantastic. And I'm very thankful that I got that at the beginning of my career and knocked that off the bucket list, because my career has taken so many different directions. I don't know that I will ever have another opportunity to get that again. So that was pretty incredible. So, as you can see from me having a bucket list and talking about personal versus professional and moving along, in life with these goals, I think it's so important to call it a bucket list. And you don't even need to call it a bucket list, because I think sometimes that has like a negative connotation to it of these are things I want to do before I'm dead. But I do think it's important to have goals and to be somewhat organized about it, because when you have it written down, whether it's on a mood board or in an Excel spreadsheet or written down on little tiny slips of paper, once you accomplish that, it becomes all the more meaningful. And I think it keeps you going. I am someone that struggles with depression and anxiety. And to have these items on my bucket list and to have a list of things that I can cross off my list and things that are continuously being added to the list, it keeps me motivated. It keeps me wanting to go to the next day, the next month, the next year, because I still have things that I need to do. On a less morbid note, I think, sometimes you don't always feel fulfilled in your day to day job. So it's important to have something on the side for yourself of goals that you want to accomplish and get yourself involved in, whether it's on your bucket list could be I want to do something for charity. I want to run a gala. I want to raise a certain amount of funds for a charity. I want to run every 5K that there is to run for charity. Or even if it's something of, I know someone that on their bucket list, it was to go and visit every baseball stadium in the country. Those are things that are all valid and wonderful and true. And a friend of mine recently announced that she is having a baby, and she's incredibly nervous about that. And she says, I feel like there's just so much that I feel like I'm not being of purpose to the world. She is being of purpose to the world because she's bringing a beautiful little person into this world, and she's going to be an incredible mom, and I'm so excited for her. And I think that it's very difficult, especially when you're a woman, especially when you're becoming a wife, especially when people become mothers. There seems to be this fear of losing a purpose in life for yourself beyond just the label of being a mom and a wife. And I think having this bucket list for myself, I started this bucket list when I thought I had someone that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And this bucket list gave me an identity outside of that relationship. So I felt like a full human being. So there's a multitude of reasons of why I feel like having these things are super important. And I love hearing about people's random bucket list items. So if you have a bucket list that you would like to share, something cool or different that you do for yourself, please let me hear it. Please write into hieatexplorelove@gmail.com. Overall, I can't express how much I loved being able to explore the city of Liverpool. I went for a day trip, but definitely feel it's worth spending much more time there. In my limited experience in the places I ate, it seemed like a city that was safe for gluten-free meals. To wrap up every city, here are some questions that I will ask every episode in this new format. Do I feel the city is safe for those with celiac? In the limited experience that I had in eating at places that I ate at, yes, I felt that it was safe, especially in the touristy restaurants, which that's a big deal. Usually in the touristy restaurants, they're not so good with that, believe it or not, in my experience at least. This, I had the opposite experience. Favorite place to eat? Well, I only ate at one restaurant, so I guess it's the Cavern Club. It was really good. The food was delicious, I will say that. Favorite memory from the experience? My favorite memory from the experience was getting to see the houses of where John, Paul, Ringo, George all grew up at and how different the environment was that they grew up at. That was pretty incredible. Is this a city to vacation to or live in? I think both. I think that Liverpool seems like a lovely place for people to live if you don't mind the rain. And it also was a lovely place to be able to just do a day trip to. So that's my impressions. Is this a place to relax or to be active? It is a city, so I don't think there's going to be much relaxing happening. But I was moving around and walking all day, but I did feel like I can move at a more relaxed pace. How are the people? They were lovely for the most part. They were incredibly kind people. I felt so bad because this accent, the Liverpool accent, was the one I had the hardest time understanding, believe it or not, out of all the places I've been to and traveled to. And I kept making them repeat themselves because I just wanted to make sure I understood them. And they had no issue figuring out how to speak slower for me or how to even just point and use hand gestures to get me to understand what they were saying. For the most part, with the exception of the tour guide, everybody was incredibly kind. I loved getting to visit Liverpool, and I really hope that this inspires you to do your own trip there. Thank you for joining me this week for all the fun journeys and lessons learned on my big adventure called life. For more information on the different cities discussed, check out the blog posts on hieatexplorelove.com, posted every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you have any questions or fun stories to share, feel free to reach out at hieatexplorelove@gmail.com. Until next week, remember to eat well, explore the world, and love yourself. See you next time. This episode is produced, scripted, and edited by me, Ashley. Special thanks to Sarah Mientka.